All right, and welcome to the Fooladi Fitness Podcast, episode number 8. Joined today by my guy Jem Beta, a man with a lot of knowledge and wisdom when it comes to topics like philosophy, psychology, human nature, and so forth. Utilizing all these universal insights to help others elevate themselves on their spiritual and self-development journeys. So appreciate you joining the podcast, man, and I'm ready to chop it up.
I'm really excited for this podcast and for the questions and just to share insights and drop value. Let's get into it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, to start things off, I kind of want to ask you about your background before how you got into all these type of topics, whether it's psychology, spirituality, self-development, all that stuff.
Yeah, very good question. Makes sense to start there. So originally, this wasn't like these weren't fields and topics that like was constantly in my mind, but I was always curious growing up. And I always liked the idea of knowing things, understanding things. Absolutely, right? Naturally, when you have that curiosity, you gravitate towards things like philosophy and self-improvement because you don't know about the world. You want to have that insight and gain it. So the self-improvement was a natural byproduct of me being very curious growing up. Another contributing factor of me looking into these fields like psychology and etc. was the idea of leveling up. I love the idea of leveling up. It made so much sense to me. If I am in this reality, it only makes sense that I get better. Right? I play video games. I'm like, this character gets better. Look at all these stats. Look how like cool he is with all these stats leveling up. And I just love the idea. It just made so much sense. So naturally, I would be curious about, okay, things like the things you talk about, fitness, right? What's fitness? Dating, what's dating? Socializing, what's socializing? What's confidence? What's a purpose? What is all this stuff? So growing up, I definitely gravitated towards sports. Basketball, love playing basketball. Soccer was actually my first sport, but I love these sports and I love the competitive nature of it. And I love the idea, you see the correlation here, improving, getting better, seeing some sort of progress. So with that understanding in the whole video games thing, as I got older, I was curious about all these areas. I was curious. So you have the internet. I'm like, okay, the internet, you have YouTube, you have these books. And I would see all these videos on how to do this, how to do that. All these guides on like how to do stuff, how to grow confidence, how to speak well, I'm like, wow, there's literally all these tools in front of me. This isn't something I verbally like articulated to myself. It was kind of like a subconscious thing. Like, wow, it's all here for my taking. Like whatever I want to do is here for my taking. So getting into high school, these were still in the back of my mind. I was very much, had my friend group and enjoyed playing basketball and all of that. But still, that improvement side of me was still there. Post high school, this is where I kicked it into overdrive because this world wasn't what I thought it was. There were so many things about it that were off. The way people live their lives, how automatic and robotic people seem, how much of a script people follow.
Yeah,
it really annoyed me. I didn't like it. And I was ready, and I had a vision for the direction I wanted to take my life, and I was ready to go to I was ready to have people not approve of me for me to build the life I want. Right? Whether it was friends not getting what I'm doing or family, I'm just like, look, you guys won't understand now, but like, I rather me have all this friction right now, this friction for a year, 2 years, 3 years with folks, rather than like a lifetime of like you not even understanding who I am. So around college was when I was majoring in computer science. I like that program because it really taught me problem solving and like, if you don't get something first, just keep going. And it taught me self-education too, right? Which is so key, not just in that major I was doing, but just in life in general. Self-education gets you so long because school I found was so narrow. There's so many narrow topics that gets covered but all like it wasn't very cohesive. Like you go to this class, you go to this class, you go to this class. A way to piece it together wasn't really there. And I knew for a fact that my self-education, like that was where I would gain the most, I would understand the most of life, not by not necessarily by all these like very narrow courses. And I took psychology classes, I took philosophy classes, but my understanding of these fields, not saying I'm like 100% the best, but what I'm saying is my understanding of these fields didn't actually come from those classes primarily. They were a nice like peak interest, like introduction. However, it really came down to my self-education and me looking into meditation, spirituality, spiritual laws, things like natural law, things around self-improvement, like, you know, things around like discipline, creating the right habits, like understanding identity, understanding our subconscious mind, conscious mind, the RAS, like all these fields. I started to do all this research and read books and then look at correlations in my life and then look at people in my life. And I started to like put these together, put the pieces together. And around 2019, still in college at the time, I was like, hey, I have like a degree of understanding in these things. I noticed these correlations. I might as well just share it with people. It just made so much sense to me. So I made a YouTube channel and I was like, I'm just gonna click record and say whatever I need to say. And my first video was on, I think it was detachment or attachment, something like that. And I wasn't overthinking the process. I was like, I don't need my first videos to be perfect. I just need to put good information out there, and then through time I'll iterate on it. And it's beautiful because it's not just the information that I gather that like has helped my life, but also when you teach something to people, you retain it better. So in the beginning, it was a twofold benefit, like great helping people, but also I retain it better. And as time went on, like it's just like even more people, you know, understanding things and retaining things. And you know, I'd upload like whenever I kind of felt like it or I had something to talk about. And then I would like come up with a series of like correlating topics. I have a series that like these multiple series to this day, like understanding people, how society programs you. I had like a series on cognitive biases. So my channel is like a map of like psychology, spirituality, self-improvement, philosophy, sociology. It's a map of all these things, and I try to just connect it so that everyday people can understand it and apply it. I don't try to get too academic-y and too like hard to understand, just in a way people can digest. But it's still very detailed and it doesn't lose its substance. So that's how I got into it. It was the curiosity, to sum it all up. It was the curiosity powered by my love for like leveling up and just competitiveness, kind of. And I was like, it just makes so much sense. There's so much around me to fuel my growth. Like I might as well utilize it.
I love that, man. That's really similar to me because I grew up playing basketball too. And when you have the like the work ethic that builds up from sports, you kind of want to still improve yourself in different areas, but you understand it's not just the physical realm. There's like the mental realm, the spiritual realm, but it takes a little bit of time to mature to that point. But yeah, so it's really relatable. And what I really enjoyed that you said is school makes things very like box in certain different aspects and like very specialized and niche. And what I try to do and what you try to do with our channels is kind of blend them all together, that like you need the mental aspect, you need the philosophy aspect, the psychology aspect, to blend it all together to improve your overall being. So that's what I really enjoy. But I wanted to ask, was there a certain book or certain philosophy, a certain like school of thought that really caught your eye in the beginning and led you down this path that we see you on today?
I don't know if there was one, but one does stand out. There's multiple, a lot of philosophies. Also, I factor in like the philosophies, just people I watch videos from and mentors from afar, whether it's Eckhart Tolle, people like that, and philosophers from the past. But if we're talking philosophies that really stood out to me, I definitely say Stoicism. I mean, I didn't even know what it was at the time when I first was kind of practicing Stoicism. But a
Mhm.
part of me had this understanding that life is going to have its like rough waves and turbulence, and you can't be too like you can't be too shaken by it,
Mhm.
because man, you're going to be so tested in life. And these tests, as Marcus Aurelius says, the obstacle is the way. I love that quote, because it's a simple quote to remind you that this test that you may be trying to avoid is actually important for you to go towards. I always approach it like you have to think of your life as a longer timeline, and the obstacles you think are things you think are obstacles today build your character. In the future you won't view it as an obstacle,
Mhm.
like at all. It's like almost laughable that it's an obstacle for you because you've overcame that, right? If we go back to video games, it's like beating level 2 and you're on like level 90, you know. So I love that philosophy, the idea of just embracing the things that come at you, and how that philosophy touches on building character. And I think it's an important part of maturity, because um, a mature person, their outlook on life a lot of times is understanding that it's not just about them.
Mhm.
If we look at Marcus Aurelius, when he was leading like an empire in his day, most of his actions were with the empire in mind, was with the people he was protecting in mind. If he didn't feel like doing things certain days, it's not about him. So I think this is a great mindset for people to adopt, like watching this. And it's a great reminder for me and everybody, is just part of maturity, and that's what I love about Stoicism, is the understanding that it's not all about you. So if you don't feel like doing something, or you have a lot of resistance to it emotionally, logically you know you need to do something, emotionally you have a lot of resistance to it, you have to ask yourself, who is this going to serve outside of myself? How do I go more meta and branch out my area of responsibility? Because a lot of us were like, oh, I'm responsible for myself. Well, what about your parents? What about your friends? What about people that don't even know you? Because let's take content creation, for instance. There's people that want to make content, but they're like too nervous or whatever to make it. Like, oh my God. You probably have a perspective right now that you say a certain way that will resonate with someone. And you're
Mhm.
like one of the few people that they would resonate with. And it's hard to think that, because I was literally talking to a guy in my program about this. The crazy thing about that is we are always in our, like we always have our brain with us, our mind. And because of that, we take for granted like the insights and the things and how we view the world. There are people out there with some amazing like things that can help others. So when you go to the mindset of it's not just about me, it helps you overcome that emotional hurdle of, oh, what if this happens? What were they going to think about me like this? What if I look like this? All of it. No,
Mhm.
focus on the message and the impact, right? Like I've made videos where I don't know, it's like there's like a little white thing on my head, or uh, there's like my shirt is slightly frizzy, or I'm like I don't care, and people don't care. Like they're like, okay, what are you gonna share with us today?
Yeah, what's the message? Yeah.
What's the message? Because I don't care if I have the best outfit that in a given video. It doesn't matter about the outfit. People remember the lesson, and they'll probably remember, okay, how they emotionally feel from the video too.
Mhm.
If they tie it to the lesson, they remember the lesson as well. So that's where my main focus is on. So that's
Mhm.
not an answer to, okay, what's the philosophy that helped me? I'd say Stoicism.
Uh-huh.
But that was also kind of a way of like helping people understand like maturity along the way, because that's helped me also mature. Because I saw a big shift in maturity by the time I turned around probably 23. I'm 26 right now, going on 27. Around
Mhm.
23, I've noticed a big shift in maturity. I think Stoicism was a big contributing factor.
Mhm. Love that, and that also kind of, correlates to, what you said about your first video, the law of detachment, how that comes into play, like, you're not so, like, it's just about me, just about me, just, like, you kinda detach, and when you detach, it gives you a more, like, a universal perspective, like, "Oh, man, it's not just me, it's all the other things around me too," so that's a good, blend of, Taoist perspective, you want to call it, with detachment, and the Stoic perspective. Like you gotta be responsible for more things, and you also got to be detached to the point where you're not so like in your own head all the time. But
Right.
going on that point, I want to ask you, how does one become more detached in the sense where they're not like they don't give up on everything in life? Because when we talk about detachment, we're not talking about, okay, just like throw away all your belongings and just like not care about anything. It means like kind of more in the sense of do the work that you need to do, but without like the grasping that it has to be so perfect in your own perspective, and letting the universe, or whatever you want to call it, God, to kind of let everything flow through how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's a very good question on detachment. I always like to start from the standpoint of, well, I'll give a like kind of the quote unquote practical approach, and I'll give
Mhm.
like the mental approach. I always like to start with focusing on what you do in terms of, let me focus my goal setting in terms of what I'm going to do. So, for example, I'm going to learn to be a boxer. Okay, instead of setting the goal of I want to win the championship in boxing
Mm.
in a year. Forget that. How about I'm going to practice boxing 6 days a week for the next like 2 years? I guarantee you, with that mindset, like let's say, okay, I'm going to practice boxing for an hour, and I'll have a coach and all of that, and I'll, I have the right information and the diet stuff right. I'll be consistent for 2 years, 6 days a week. If you set that and you hit that, or at least you are more of the way there of like most of the weeks in the given year you practice boxing, and you're very proud of what you did. You took action, but also you can enjoy the fact that you took the action and not care too much about that championship, and not be so attached to, oh, like, where's the championship? Oh, I didn't win the championship.
Mhm.
Because your goal, your inputs, or what you wanted to do was accomplished. So I start from the standpoint of, what am I going to do? Because that's going to help me move me towards my goal. It's going to help me be more attached. I'm disattached, actually, detached to the outcome that I want. Now, I don't undervalue outcomes. Outcomes are great. You want an ideal outcome. But when you're fixated on the outcome, this is where the frustration happens. This is where people start to beat themselves up. This is where people start to compare themselves. Oh my God, this person is here when he started later than me. Um, that's very simplistic thinking, because that person could have a myriad of reasons, myriad of factors why they may be quote unquote more ahead of you from your vantage point, right? You don't know other factors that contribute to that. So I'd say what you do, focusing on what you do, and also giving you yourself like kind of the micro validation, because people wait for the grand outcome to give themselves a validation,
Mm.
or I think part of that is because they want others to give them the validation. So the macro outcome is the only grand validation.
Mhm.
But no, you can give yourself validation along the way. When they say like the journey is the key, or enjoy the journey, that's what's meant. The journey is like the exciting part. When you win it and all of that, it's like, okay, let me go in maintenance mode, or, oh, this was great. Let me, you know, the journey. It's not like the journey. You build the skill, whatever you're doing. You learn along the way. You also fail, and you also struggle,
Mhm.
and also you build up other character traits that are separate from the main thing. So, for example, in the boxing example, he's boxing, he's getting good at the skill of boxing, dodging, he's building the boxing muscles and all of that. However, he's learning other minor lessons in it. Discipline. He's learning to, yeah, I guess you could say, control himself. Discipline. He's learning like how struggle is part of the process. He's learning all these other things that are also benefits long term. So he gets the championship. Let's say 3 years later he wins the boxing title. Well, that's a big win. Nice, congrats. But he can be happy in all the things he did leading up. And the character development is immense. The character development is immense. So I think that's so key when it comes to detachment, is those micro validations of the inputs that you do. So that's kind of one side of it when it comes to detachment.
Mhm.
Another one is it doesn't matter as much as you think, like whether you achieve it or you don't. Like the idea of, hey, things are impermanent, things will come and go, things will pass, and things you assign importance to, like one time it might be important to you, maybe in 10-15 years it's not that important to you anymore. Like that's just the key. That's just how it is. And also, like, how are you viewing, like, what is this going to do for your life if you achieve it or you don't? I'm thinking more in terms of like rewards and achievements and all of that, but I mean, you could apply this to multiple things. We have to watch the meaning we attribute to these outcomes that we receive, and what it means for us, and how important it is, and all of that. Because sometimes importance is relative. It's relative. Someone that, let's see, like I got my plaque for YouTube a few months ago, right, for like 100,000. It was great. Love, I have it like right here. And but someone that like doesn't watch YouTube, isn't familiar with YouTube culture and internet really and all of that.
What the hell is that? Yeah.
What is it? Like, okay, it's a silver thing. If he didn't like it's in English now, obviously, but if he didn't know English and he just saw it, he's like, what is that? He might use it as like a tool or something, or he might use it as like a plate to eat food off.
I was gonna say a plate, yeah.
You know? Like in my society, in America, in Europe, in Australia, people that are on YouTube, on the internet, they're like, oh, 100,000, oh, nice, that's the plaque, that's the reward, that's the grand validation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, not for everyone. It's relative. Also, it's a construct. An award for a number that I reached? Why is that number so important? How come 10,000 isn't important? How come 630,000 isn't important? How come 2 isn't important? It's an arbitrary number.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it though. However, there's no way I could make that my the thing I'm attached to. No way. No way. Because the micro things are the most important. The person that comments on my videos, wow, in 15 years of therapy, this one video like gave me the breakthrough. That blows my mind when I read a comment like that.
Mm-hmm.
The person that comments like, Jem, like your videos like changed my life. Like I'm moving here now because of a video you made on like detachment or something like that. I'm like, wow. The process of me like even articulating this and getting better at articulating this, because this is a skill in and of itself. The editing process, me just putting out my creativity. Some people ask me, wow, how do you come up with these thumbnails? How do you, I'm like, look, part of it is like, okay, I kind of understand like, okay, the YouTube thing, but part of it is just my creativity. Like I like putting it, I view this channel, brand, etc. as just like my artistic expression.
Mm-hmm.
Put it out there. I'm like, hey, this is what it is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's these micro things that I value to the point where it becomes just as good as the grand outcome, or even better than the grand outcome, usually even better than the grand outcome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well said, yeah. And that was a perfect correlation to what we talked about before we even started recording the podcast about your YouTube journey, because I saw your channel, like we said, like way back when it was like only a couple hundred subscribers, and I was seeing it all the way up to the top, and you're still not even attached to the plaque, the number, the this and that, but you put more emphasis on real like social or just like actual impact that you gave to people with the comments, with the people in your coaching program, stuff like that. That's what really gives you that sense of like, okay, I'm on the right path, I'm doing the right things, this and that. Not just, okay, it's cool, like obviously I want one too, the plaque and this and that, but like what you just said, you have the maturity to actually step back and be like, someone from another country would probably come to my house and start eating off that thing. I have no idea what that is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
eating some chicken or rice or something, beans off of it.
I'm like, oh, my bad, my bad. I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
But that's another good topic we can get into is just your overall journey on YouTube and how you kind of go about content creation, because you take a lot of topics from a lot of ancient wisdom as well as blending it in a sense to make it practical, because I obviously read a lot of ancient wisdom and older books, older philosophies and stuff like that, and I try to package it in a way where people can use it in a practical sense as well. But a lot of people out there can't really get into these books, and it's really hard for them to wrap their minds around certain topics. But with us being able to break it down into simpler terms, they can take those same messages and, like you just said, maybe they relate more to me and you than someone from thousands of years ago. So how do you go about your whole process of like choosing what video topics, choosing what books you want to cover and stuff like that, and blending into a kind of like a system where people can click on the video, get the main gist of it while not being so overwhelmed to the point where it's like their brain like short circuits, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good question. I'll answer it from top to bottom. So how I come up with a given topic, multiple ways. Sometimes I'm going for a walk and I'm like, oh, I should make a video on this. Some topics are people literally comment and say, hey, make a video on this. I'm like, okay, cool. Video on social media. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that. Or I add it to my list. I have instances where it's something going on in my life and I'm like, man, this would be a great video great thing to talk about. For example, my toxic guilt video. So that's multiple ways where I could come up with a given topic. I have a long list on this laptop / my phone. Literally just says video ideas. And then I just choose the one that makes the most sense for that time, that I either feel like doing or I feel like would have the most like demand with people, that would really resonate with people. Sometimes my video ideas come from what I post on other platforms. So for instance, if I tweet something and, if people reply to it or they have a question about it or, gets a good engagement, I'm like, oh, maybe this would be a good video topic. Or I make a short on a given topic. And I'm like, I should do a video on that. Like just recently, I had a short on how to be more present, right? And I talked about engaging the 5 senses more in the moment, and it helps. And then I was like, okay, I made a live stream on that on Tuesday. So I have this list of topics, and then I get to planning it out. So I'll open up a Google Doc, and then I'll start with, okay, I'll just section it. So I'll start with like intro, and then I'll get into like what the video is, like the meat of it, and then I'll get into solutions at the bottom of it. And then I have another section where it's just like notes. Notes / quotes. And what that is just like little notes I want to make, and also quotes I want to use in the video from my research or from books or from quotes I came up with in my head. I quote myself. So that's why I section it. So I start with, I start jotting out everything, all my ideas around the topic, right, in the main section. And then I start doing my research, and I also reference any books I've read in the past or I'm currently reading. Because what's beautiful about the quotes in the books I reference is an insight is given by an expert, let's say a psychologist or someone like that, or a psychiatrist. And then by that insight, I add another correlation to that from that I understand, or a way to phrase it a little bit differently. So that's what I do. I structure the video in like, okay, what do they need to know about it? What are some examples? What are some caveats, right? Things like that. And also I expand on what some quotes do say. And then I get to like the solutions part of the video where I give, okay, what can you do about this? Right? In my emotional addictions video, I was like, okay, how do you handle dealing with emotional addictions? Solutions. And it's so important because everyone's mindset when they consume a piece of content and they understand, okay, they identify a problem, okay, they're educated on the problem. Now what? You can't just end the video there. I used to kind of end the video there. I'm like, okay, guys, peace. No, there needs to be, so there needs to be an additional thing there about, okay, what can you do about it? And then I add that, right? Drawing parallels from my life, things I've done, right? Like, okay, if a solution is meditation, what type of meditation? If you're, listening to affirmations, that's nice and all, but how do you do it correctly, right? How does emotion get involved in that? So like specifics, and then from there, after all that's done, I get into the intro. I work on the intro last because the intro summarizes the video. Also, from the standpoint of YouTube, the intro is so critical, like because I like to optimize my video just for not for my followers, subscribers, but also new people. They don't know who I am. Like, the truth is, for attention spans nowadays, people need to have some sort of intrigue to get into a video. If my intention is to create a video that someone finds enjoyable and they gain value from, well, it'd probably be ideal for me to make a great intro, because if they don't finish the video, how are they going to gain value from it? Nature of the beast and so on social media. So create a nice intro, not make it too long, probably 30 seconds to a minute 15 or so. And then from there, I get to recording, right? I reference my notes as I'm talking. Some videos, I have a lot of notes, so I gotta be like, try to stay eyes on camera, but sometimes I'm just like that. Other videos, man, it's just like, I don't have that many notes, I'm just like, right?
Off the dome. Yeah.
Off the dome. Yeah, exactly. So from there I record. I usually do one take. I don't need to be perfect on the recording. I don't care to be perfect on the recording. Like I said, I'll have fuzz on my hair. I won't shave one. Like, come on, you know what I mean? Like, get it out. So, and then this is the editing process. I'm gonna soon actually have an editor do half of the editing process, the second half. But I did all the editing actually to this day. And from there, I just keep the most valuable things in. And I learned this from, because when I was first starting my YouTube channel, as kind of like a side thing I did was like writing articles, right? Article writing. That's how I built my skill set of writing. And one client I had was, he gave me such good advice when it came to articles. This is so applicable, and I drew a correlation with my videos is, look, like, people, think of every line of the article, every sentence needs to be valuable. That's what's going to get people to keep consuming it. Make it valuable. Give Alex Hormozy, a business guy, he talks about give the farm away, like give everything. I totally agree with that. So in my editing process, I keep the good, like the best stuff in. I try to keep as minimal fluff as possible. And then from there, usually editing, it could vary. It could be 3 hours up to, I had a video that was like 10 hours of editing. Multiple days, not just in one day.
Yeah.
And then from from there, I don't have a strict upload schedule just because a part of me is structured, but a part of me loves spontaneity. I love spontaneity. I guess I'm like a balance of like the artist, but like the business guy that's like,
yeah, that's YouTube right there. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm like, okay, when it's ready, it's ready. Sometimes I announce things and it's like a little bit delayed, but like it is what it is. So then I upload, and then it's up, and that's my process. And I sometimes, like I told you, I sometimes still share on Reddit to communities I've always shared on, and I reply to comments, right, and also kind of share it on my other platforms and all of that. And then when I upload it, I'm just like, I put it out there. Great. Like I tried to, it's so important for content creators, or if you're doing anything as a whole, like don't get too sucked into the numbers too much. Don't completely ignore the numbers. It can help you improve your content, right? But don't get so much validation from the numbers because it can be such a mind game. You want to think very long term. If one video doesn't do that well, it doesn't mean it's bad content. It could just be the thumbnail. Like, okay, just adjust it, right? Or it could be an algorithm thing. But just focus on great content and being consistent. I don't think I've never, in my years on YouTube, I've never gone more than 4 weeks without uploading, or 3 weeks and a half. I think the longest maybe 3 weeks and a half. But usually it's about 2 weeks. Like usually I try to keep it like a week and a half, 2 weeks. It's just that consistency. So that's my process. Now, right before when I was starting, it was literally like, okay, phone, boom, record, and all of that. A phone on top of shoebox, and then I gotta. Yeah, I'm serious. Yeah, like it doesn't have to be perfect at all. If we go back to inputs, like it really helps you avoid that perfectionism. Uh,
Mhm.
I noticed really quick, and then I'll wrap this up. Is I noticed the perfectionism creeping up a little bit as my channel started to grow. Right, like obviously you want to up the quality and get better each time, but I had to kind of nip that in the butt, as in do very well, but every single video you upload, you're gonna look back at, I could have done this better. I could have done this better.
Mhm.
Just get it better. And then it's like a graph. I always make this analogy, like a graph that goes towards like infinity. It gets closer and closer to it. Perfectionism is infinity. You never really like. By the time it reaches it, you've passed on already or whatever. And it won't reach it because you passed on essentially. So yeah,
That's
definitely.
good insights right there. That's good insights for anyone out there that's wanting to start a YouTube channel, is doing a YouTube channel. Like it's a long game. That's like the biggest mindset you have to have when it comes to this. But along with that, when it comes to your content and stuff, I wanted to ask you what were, let's say, 5 to 10 books that really impacted you along this path, that we see a lot of your content bridged out from. Like it could be whatever topics you want, but like 5 to 10. Let's just keep it at five. 10 is a little too much, but let's keep it at five. That's like the most that really um, shaped your perspective and helped you look at the world in a different way, and allowed you to help other people look at the world in a completely different way as well.
Oh, definitely. Very good question. I start with the four agreements, teaching me
Mhm.
communication and the importance of seeing where everyone else is coming from. The idea of not taking things personally was huge for me. So simple, but like growing up, that was kind of like the culture because I'm African, and it's kind of the culture. Like someone quote unquote disrespects you, you don't talk to them for like a year, and like growing up, my mom would talk about, oh, this person did this at this event, and she doesn't want to, talk to them. So that was a huge breakthrough for me. The four agreements, definitely. Another one is, I'd say, um, oh, the Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. Read
Mhm.
that fall of 2015 after high school, and that was major in really understanding the present moment and just moving my life along in that way. Another book is Castratising by Drew Eric Whitman. This one's more so on a marketing side, but it touches on psychology of people, why people
Mhm.
buy things, why consumerism is a thing. I was like, wow, my how I viewed the world changed, and also it grew my it changed how I viewed marketing. I thought it was really, I was like, wow, marketing is really cool. um, and it led to me kind of starting a marketing agency. So that's that. There's a book by MJ DeMarco. I think it's something path. I referenced it on the live stream, but I forgot.
Fastlane.
No, not the Millionaire Fast Lane.
Okay.
It's this other one. It's like a blue and red book.
Uh-huh.
Where he talks about things like the education system. He talks about the beaten path people follow. And it's so unfortunate because people don't think about these beaten paths. Get married at this age. Live here. Think like this.
Mhm.
Like only look forward to the weekend. Like what? I was like, man, that's crazy right there. Another one, Ego is the Enemy, Ryan Holiday. He touches on a bit of Stoicism in that book, but he really makes a lot of references to public figures in the past and present that have faced very similar challenges the everyday person faces, but they've overcame it in a given way. In fact, these challenges were in a grander scale than the everyday person.
Mhm.
So these correlations he makes, you can think about it and you can be like, if he was able to do all this, then like your problem looks kind of petty relative to what
Mhm.
that person overcame. So there's that. Another book, controversial, but the 48 Laws of Power. Not
Mhm.
from a standpoint where I agree with every law. No, some laws on there I'm like, damn, that is terrible. But it helps you understand authoritarianism, and it helps you understand people that are. that seek power, why they seek power, and tactics they use. Also, power, it helped me. I actually changed how I saw power by reading that book,
Mhm.
because power isn't just power over others; it can be power within yourself. Um, and man, that book was very powerful. I actually had a video on like my top 12 favorite laws from it.
Mhm.
Um, a very fascinating book for sure. Uh,
No.
there's definitely more. So give me a second.
Yeah.
Ones that I let's see. Oh my God. Transurfing in 78 Days / Reality Transurfing Redeem Zealand.
Mhm.
Reality Transurfing. Understanding that there's infinite potential in this realm. You just have to pull it into the physical reality. And it starts with how you think and how you feel. Um, and that was so powerful. And learning about pendulums and how people get sucked into energy structures, thought structures that groups of people create. Take a political party, take a social media group that's very radical. Man, their level of conviction and anger can suck you in.
Mhm.
Whether you suck in, you get sucked in via joining in with them, or you get sucked in via arguing with them. That's very real right there. Another book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That's actually a book we read in my coaching program. Oh man, we have so many things that keep us who we are. We perpetuate our identities every single day without really even knowing it, because we're used to the
Mhm.
identity. However, you have to break it. You have to break those habits. You have to break those thought patterns. Also, you have to create a new future by being present and tapping to the infinite potential.
Mhm.
Visualize myself in the quantum, as in present, basically. Let me visualize myself having a different future, but I treat it like a present moment.
Mhm.
Right there, I now have proof that this is possible, because there's multiple realms of causation, as the Kabbalion put, would that be the next book I'll mention?
Mhm.
Multiple realms, not just the physical realm. People try to make change in the physical realm. That's one realm. What about what about the mental plane, the metaphysical plane? You can make changes there, and it influences the physical realm.
Mhm.
I can visualize myself actually being confident and feeling confident in the visualization, and then how I approach people in the in the world will change. Amazing stuff. So that's big right there. The Kabbalion, three initiates, teachings of Hermes Trismegistus / Thoth Trismegistus, whoever believes it came from, whatever. I don't care who it came from. The information is accurate. It could be Santa Claus. The information is accurate. Um, and how do you determine if it's accurate? Well, try it out. Look at your life.
Yeah.
Look at cause and effect. Look at the law of correspondence. Probably my favorite one. Look at the law of vibration. Look at what you attract by the law of vibration. Look at
Mhm.
the law of gender, masculine and feminine energy. Look at mentalism. Reality is a mind. This thing is
Mhm.
intelligent. How the heck is all this an accident? Impossible.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just so happened that the worm eats this, and then the bird eats the worm, and then the bird's weakness is this, and then the tree. This is way too correlated. The carbon cycle, the nitrogen, this, the. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is like way too intelligent, and this is just Earth stuff I'm mentioning. What about like universal stuff? Like, okay, this star explodes, becomes a supernova, and then it can help build another star, something like that. I'm like, wow. So mentalism. So yeah, the Kabbalion was just powerful. It's definitely one of those books that's more dense,
Mhm.
kind of dense for people. But I always invite people, if a book is dense, look at look. Don't be afraid to look into summaries. Don't be afraid to look at notes, spark notes around it, or video reviews around it. Other
Mhm.
people's takeaways from it. I think there's a lot to be said about like book reviews and like kind of just online mentors that add their perspective to books, right? Because we all interpret things differently. So if you didn't get something in a book or you didn't understand it, someone probably understood it and can explain it a little bit better.
Mhm.
Um, that definitely goes a long way. Something we just kind of just talked about. Um, oh man, there's so many books out there. I'm trying to name like one or two more that really really spoke to me. I'll probably keep it there. Yeah, I'll probably keep it there. I have an entire on my Gem Valley community Instagram. I have like book recommendations.
Mm.
It's like over. It's about 20 or maybe even more recommendations. I'm continually adding to it, and at some point, I'm definitely going to add book recommendations to my website for people to check out.
Love it. That was like over 5 for sure, yeah. But, another, I actually did, one on the Hermetic laws, the 7, principles in the Kybalion not too long ago about a video kind of breaking it down in my perspective in a way that people can get introduced into it and eventually go read the book for themselves because everyone's going to look at it a different perspective, which is cool about all these types of books. But a couple of key points that you mentioned in the books that you just listed was how society programs you and how that keeps you stuck in a certain self identity, and that self image keeps you at a certain frequency vibration, just overall creates your lifestyle that you live in. And there's ways that you can break out of that essentially by connecting in the present moment, understanding there's different possibilities, different realms that you can tap into. So I know that you have a whole series about this, but on a very short summarized level, how would you explain this to someone just listening about this right now?
In terms of how to how society programs you.
Yeah, how
Oh,
like understanding how society first programs you and understand how to break out of that program and eventually reprogram it into the way that you want to eventually kind of create the life that you want to live, that you've always wanted to live, but it's been kept down and kept hidden under the closet, or whatever you want to call it, um, for years now, since society's psychological constraint on you, like you just said in the, I think you when you were referring to reality transurfing, how much energy they can pull from you subconsciously that you're kind of slowly but surely penning out the life that they want you to live, not the one that you actually want to create for yourself.
yeah, 100%. I'll start with the younger years. As you come into the world, you know either nothing or very little. You're learning so much in your initial years. You see these guardians or a guardian that is your mother or father or adopted mother or a grandma or something. And they're responsible for your safety needs, your esteem needs. They're responsible for a lot of things for you. And naturally, when this young like creature, human, is relying on someone else, there's obviously dependence there. And with that dependence, you kind of just take in what that person gives you. Like they must know a lot about the world. They're like older, right? They're an adult. You just take it all in, and you're very ignorant to how the world works. So like you just take in like whatever's around you. And it's natural for the environment to shape the given person. But what about if the parents have very bad habits? What about if the parents are very unconscious? What about if the parents have bad addictions? What if the parents don't show love at all? The kid shapes their worldview. If they don't get love, oh, this world is an unloving place. People are people can abandon you. They may internalize that. So everything's a lot of the worldview is taken from the home, and now there are instances where the home is like destructive and the person turns out fine. Maybe they have some traumas, but they turn out very well. There are instances where the home is great, but the person turns out, they fall into bad, kind of bad vices and things like that. However, for the most part, we understand the environment shapes the person so much in the early years, and also other factors like, hey, some people are more prone to think a given way, right? So how come one kid whose parents gets divorced, he blames himself, the other kid doesn't blame himself? Well, the environment is the same, like the same situations. Not the environment is the same, but the same situation is going on. However, both kids are having two different interpretations. So the kid's interpretation contributes to it as well. But how society programs you, I mean, look at the parents' tendencies get programmed to the child. Obviously, the parent has certain genetics that the child carries. The child goes to school, and school is structured in a given way. Um, there's videos out there on how the modern education system was set up, like taking advice from how Prussia ran its education system, and it's like it's military. Uh, big stuff there. So what you start to notice is what you think does get pushed down. I think that's one of the main things that like your opinions can get pushed down and like kind of pushed aside, and authenticity can be like attacked when you're a kid. And in a sense, it's done in a way to socialize you, as in like, hey, that way you understand. Okay, when you're at a dinner party, like don't like don't like make like I don't know fart jokes or something like that, right? So you learn that stuff. However, the kid internalizes that. The kid can get stifled in that way, in terms of, oh, my authenticity, that's dangerous to express myself. And now it becomes a shadow, as in maybe they can't express themselves around family as much. That's something I can relate to. Like I had to work on that, like my full spectrum of expressing myself. Um, maybe their creativity got like not validated. Um, things like that. So the kid grows up, and as the kid gets older, he gets into the teenage years, and now he usually this is when you want to like differentiate yourself from the parents, from you want to differentiate yourself from the guardians. Like you want to identify who is this person, and it's ironic because it's natural to get join in on a new friend group and identify with them, but you feel unique because it's separate from like the parents. So like an example, this group could be an example of how society programs you. Well, if you could fall into groupthink, that's an example. You could fall into that, where you actually turns out you thought you were going to be authentic, but you can't feel like you can express yourself authentically because socially you may be rejected by your new tribe.
Mhm.
So you just fall into their frames all the time, and that goes a long way. The kid goes home, watches television. Fear is spread on the news. They spread fear. Oh, this is going on here. This is going on here. Watch out for this. Commercials come on. Buy this, buy now. Consumerism. That's an episode I made on a site programs you. Like repetition of these messages that goes into the subconscious mind. The kid's hungry one day. What should I have? Chick-fil-A. First thing that pops in his mind. Why is that the first thing that popped in his mind? Well, he saw the commercial a lot. That's what happened. Oh, he's craving Chick-fil-A. First thing that popped in his mind. The repetition of the message. Another one. The teenager now talks to the parent, and the parent can program the teenager by shame, guilt, and praise. The parent can shame the teenager by doing something that they don't want. Shame could help the teen, right? If the teen's doing destructive habits, it could help them. Like, okay, don't do that, like because this is you're grounded. Da, 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 that's terrible. Da, da, da. However, it's how it's said. Like you have to still validate. Like, okay, where they're coming from. You don't just shun it completely. But that's a whole different thing. But shame, praise, and guilt, as in casting guilt, and then because they feel guilty, they fall in line with whatever is said, and all of that. Oh man, that's big right there. Um, so the kid grows up, kind of gets into college and career and all of that, and they're told that they should do this, they should do that with their lives. They should live here. They should do this. There's no authentic like there's no time really for unless the person makes the time to sit and think about what do they genuinely want for their lives. And if they don't know, taking the time, okay, I'm going to take time to figure it out. I'm not going to rush into things I don't need to rush into. But society programs you fear, oh, you're running out of time. You need to do this right now. Anxiety, oh my God, look, my classmates are graduating and they're getting these jobs. And oh my God, this person's getting married on social media. Something you see at face value, you don't know their relationship. That's a whole other story, right? So media consumption creates fear, this fear within. And then, people start like rushing into decisions. They start rushing into doing this. And there's no time for individuation.
Mhm.
Individuation kind of started in the teenage years where like, okay, I like this type of rock music and I like to dress like this now and discovering themselves. But there's the group think. There's, oh, what do these other teenagers think of me now? I'm being the person becomes more aware of other people's thinking patterns. Because as a kid, you're just like in your own world
Mhm.
and you're just like in your like you just do things. And as you grow up, you develop the ability to like think um more sophisticatedly, like more sophisticated thinking, which can kind of bite you in the butt because you start to think, okay, what does this person think of me? And then you carry that into adulthood. And then that's why I made a video on the imaginary audience. I'm like, people actually have these hierarchy of needs. Their entire life can't be devoted to paying attention to what you're doing. They may have an initial reaction and then they'll like forget about it.
Mhm.
They're like, oh, like you graduated with them. They're like, oh wow, he's doing this. Okay, that's crazy. All right, next.
You're not that important, yeah.
More, they're focused on themselves. They think other
Yeah.
people are like fixated on them and all of that.
Mhm.
Couldn't be more wrong. So the person starts to rush, right? They don't really discover themselves. They just fall into the script, the beaten path. They fall into the consumerism even more. They fall into you need this to feel happy. The spiritual potential is dimmed and it's very materialistic. It's very modern, very capitalistic, very in there's this thing called spiral dynamics. It's so fascinating. It's like a sociology model of how the world works and like these groups that people tend to fall into. And in Stage Orange, it's like America is like a representation of Stage Orange, or any like very metropolitan first world modern country. A lot of it is very like there's capitalism involved. There's very like much secularism. Like it's very like there's a lot of things that that grab your attention. It's very worldly. And
It's
then
like
you
the lower chakra, if you
yeah,
wanna relate it to that, yeah, like the lower desires, lower needs, like animalistic
yep,
type of desires, yeah.
root chakra, sacral, and solar plexus,
Mhm.
the pride, and it goes up to pride. And then from there, you can't be surprised when the person he gets into self development. He's around 30. He's like, I gotta make a change in my life. I'm not really
Yeah.
liking how he. You can't get surprised when he only approaches it in terms of like, okay, what do I do in the world to get what I want? Oh, this John Veda video. Oh, multiple planes of causation. The Kabbalion. Like what? My mind? This thing? No, this thing just processes what's going on out there, and it imagines stuff sometimes, and I dream with it. The pineal gland just dreams,
Mhm.
helps me dream and fall asleep or whatever. Uh, yeah, like that's it. Yeah, that's what that like in school. That's what they're talking about. Oh yeah, yeah. Like you see, very stage orange. The closed mindedness too. As someone gets older, they get set in their ways. You hear the
Yeah.
you can't teach an old dog new tricks. They get stuck in their ways. Now it's like harder to deconstruct all these things. You also factor in the trauma from the past, the younger years. Some people want to suppress things that they didn't like, and it's almost they have to almost recollect like where all this stuff came from. So as you get older, it does get harder. However, it's still an opportunity. I don't care what age you are; it's still an opportunity to grow and be better. So society programs you in so many ways, and a big thing about that is to understand is that it's almost impossible for society to have your specific best interest at heart. How can it? There's so many things going on, and there's also very powerful people that have a lot of power in the structure of how it runs. So you're someone living in Wyoming. How can society have your best interest at heart specifically?
Mhm.
It can't. You have to have your best interests at heart. You have the most context about your life, so you're the person that can make a difference. That's so key to understand.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's a gradual process, and it can be subtle or overt. My understanding people series also touches on, like, I love this those both playlists a lot because it combines two maps of reality that's so crucial.
Mhm.
Because when you understand society more, you understand how people behave more. When you understand how people behave more, you understand society more. It's like, just people build up society.
Yeah.
Society
Goes
influences.
hand in hand. Yeah.
Exactly. Um, so yeah, that's how I would put it from a chronological standpoint, from someone in the formative years up until 30 or so.
Mhm.
I'll also add that in the 40s and 50s, you notice trends of midlife crises. Why does this happen? Well, people haven't individuated correctly, and they just fall into scripts. So the man gets a divorce at 50, and then he buys a Porsche or a Ferrari or a Lambo, or a 1967 Mustang or something.
It just catches up to them. There's like, I've just been living in like a lie this entire time, bro. This is not what I wanted. And then they kind of like go to the extreme opposite, and then they still can't find it. But one thing that you kind of mentioned along the way that I think is probably one of the most important things to actually um, reprogram your subconscious mind and get out of these societal programmings is the fact of integrating those attributes and traits of yourself that were kind of beaten out of you while you were going throughout your childhood and eventually formed your shadow. And I know that you've talked about the shadow self, how to integrate your shadow when it comes to other psychologists like Carl Jung, and I've made a video about that as well. So let's talk about that before we wrap things up, because I think we've kind of laid out how all these things lead up to societal programmings and you eventually repressing your shadow. But to actually counteract that, a lot of people think it's only positive light, love, and all that stuff that comes with this whole maturation process. But you have to go through what people like to call your dark night of the soul, or whatever it is that you kind of want to label it as. But that shadow is eventually what's gonna merge your true self with the timeline that you're living right now, and it's gonna be uncomfortable at times, but it is a necessary uh act that you have to do to eventually program yourself into your true self.
Yeah, facts, exactly. The shadow is so fascinating because people have people hear about certain traits, like being bold, being detached, or being a little more attached. Not even attached, but being more open to love and all of that. They hear these things, and they're like, "That's not who I am," or "That's not me." Well, what if these things were actually just suppressed and pushed down? Because in your life, these may be helpful things that to integrate and tap into. For example, if you didn't necessarily feel like if you didn't necessarily feel like you could give love to people when you were young, or you were unlovable or something, like that's something your parents said. Well, it's not that. It's just that this is what you were told and it was programmed into you, and then like you push down and push away the idea of being lovable. But in a romantic relationship, if you don't believe that you're lovable, you're going to self-sabotage it.
Mhm.
You're going to be the person's going to say they love you, but you can't accept it. No matter what they say, it doesn't you don't believe it. You fundamentally don't believe that you're lovable. So now you have to go on the journey of, okay, I firmly believe that I wasn't lovable when I was young. Now I need to work on it. It's not my responsibility. I went out another scenario. A person was told, "Hey, don't be so loud. Hey, don't draw too much attention to yourself. Don't be so like upfront, whatever." Well, what if that person wants to be an entrepreneur?
Mhm.
They have to be a little bit bold, maybe a little bit risk taking. So the shadow, you have to look at what traits was I told was wrong. What behaviors was I told was wrong. It could be a positive or a negative side. But guess what? Even the negative traits, like let's say you get angry. Guess what? Even anger can be integrated in the correct way. Here's an example. If because when I was younger, I was like I would get angry pretty easily. I talked about that in a recent video. It's something I worked on. But what about playing sports? Not getting angry in the standpoint of, hey, you attack your opponent and you get kicked out the game. No. What if you get angry to win? You can use anger to fuel your winning.
Mm-hmm.
So let me integrate anger in the correct way, in the correct context. Instead of making this broad assumption that any form of anger is bad, let me make it contextual. Okay, when I'm playing this sport, and let's say you're someone that anger helps you play better. Oh, well, okay. We're down by 25. Okay, you know what? No, I'm going to take over. I'm going to have anger fuel me. When it comes to your relationship, you feel unlovable. Okay. Feeling love is one of the most important things to get fulfillment out of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, what can I do to integrate the idea of me being lovable? How well am I treating the other people in my life? Where's all the evidence of this going on? How do I put my past into perspective? And how do I analyze the parent or guardian that told me this? How do I analyze my mom or my father that said this? What was their upbringing like? So now with shadow work, you're dissecting all of this. You're asking questions, and you ask more questions and more questions and more questions. And what I found is that a lot of our beliefs, they're more flimsy than we think they are. And it can take time to process, like any traumas that contributed to things being in your shadow. But there are certain traits in the shadow that the person may not feel like they can tap into, but it's there, it's latent in it, and there are instances where they can utilize that given trait
Mm-hmm.
in that given behavior. Um, there are guys out there that like a particular type of woman, and you know, oh well, I was told growing up to go after this type of woman. But I like this type of woman. Same with maybe women out there or people that identify with like a certain sexuality. Like, no, this is just what you were told. So it's the programming, and it's like, okay, now they start to repress and like push away. Oh, like I like this person, but they push away, push it away, push it away,
Mm-hmm.
and then you end up like finding someone that just agrees with that people around you would agree with. You see this a lot in like Eastern countries, Korea, Japan, China. Like it's very much like not just the individual. A lot of it is what will the parent, what will the aunts, what will the friends think of all my decisions, big or minor. Um, so that's a big thing there. Yeah, that's the shadow. Find what was repressed. What were you told was wrong? Because and also break down the psychology of what you were told, of the teacher that told you that, of the parent that told you that, of the sibling that told you that. Understand that you're also very impressionable, like especially if you were young.
Mm-hmm.
And trauma is a real thing, and it may be difficult to revisit it. But even like, let's say you revisit it and you let out tears and just an emotional release, is extremely important for your healing process.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's just repressed, it can come out in crazy ways.
Yeah.
Right? You repress anger only, you'll be like, anger is completely bad. You just push it, push it, push it. And then you get completely angry out of nowhere from all the pushing of it. And then now you feel guilty. And now you're like, oh, how could I do that? Now you
You're
start,
pressing more. Yeah.
yeah. And it's a downward, like lower consciousness level of life
Yeah.
that goes on.
Well said, man. Well said. That was a great pod, bro. We covered a lot of topics, Bill. But before we finally wrap things up, is there any projects or any type of things that we can expect from you come in the near future?
Yeah, I'll cover what I'm currently doing, and I'll cover a new program I'm going to be releasing. So,
Mhm.
firstly, I have the Syndicate. It's a free community. People that love self improvement. We're on Discord talking. One meeting we meet once per week, talking about where we're at, giving us each other advice. Very great. Um, on my channel, there's a link to it if you're interested.
Yeah,
Anyone's
I'll
interested.
plug in everything in the
So
description.
yeah, I have Identity Resonance, my coaching program. It's 90 days. There's also a 6 week version, helping people change their identities, but also like becoming their own mentor. Because what I found is like the biggest ROI is someone learning how to mentor themselves, how to
Mhm.
coach themselves. Um, so that's one thing. And then I have an upcoming program on the subconscious mind, videos, PDFs, practices, a bunch of stuff relates not just to subconscious mind, but the subconscious, like just the body, right? How the body reacts subconsciously to things. Um, there's a lot of things in there. There's some things related to NLP in there. That's really interesting. NLP is something I'm kind of studying right now. Um, Meditations, a bunch of stuff in there. So those are some few things I'm working on.
Love it, man. Love it. So overall, though, man, appreciate you joining the podcast. That was a great talk, man. If we ever do this again, maybe on your channel, maybe on a live stream or whatever it is, man, I'll be for sure down with it, man. That was a great talk.
Yeah, bro, this was amazing. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
No doubt, man. No doubt. Peace.